What's going on, guys? How to be back. On today's irregularly scheduled program, we are taking a look at the latest Fire Emblem game released for the 3DS, that being Fire Emblem Echoes Shadow of Valentia. Thanks to the other games I've done so far and the addicting nature of Fire Emblem Heroes, I've been feverishly waiting for this game. The trailers and everything they've been announcing as well had me just super excited. So much so that this actually became the first game in a long time that I actually bought the special edition for it. Eventually, the game was released, and I played it, and, well, that's what I'm here to discuss today. So, enough pausing on this, let's dive right into Fire Emblem Echoes Shadow of Valentia. So, Echoes stars Alm and Celica, childhood friends living with their grandpa in the quiet Ram village. The village children went to go play one day when the neighboring country of Rigel sent soldiers into Zofia and have encountered the kids, with one recognizing Celica. After their grandpa Mycen came to deal with the soldiers, Mycen is forced to take Celica away, to the confusion of Alm. He vows to one day be strong enough to protect her, and they leave. Many years later, still separated from each other, Alm is tasked by some forces from a group called the Deliverance to attempt to push Rigel out of Zofia, and Celica, having lived out her life in a priory as a priestess, is tasked with going to the Temple of Milla to see what may have happened, as there is reason to believe the goddess Milla is missing. So now you do just that. Recruit an assortment of colorful characters to aid in your quest, leading two different armies along their path, attempting to put an end to Rigel, all the while having Alm and Celica hoping that they will see each other again someday. So, being a remake of an NES title, I wasn't quite sure how Intelligent System was going to adapt this tale. I never played it myself, as did probably a lot of other people, as it was a Japan exclusive title. As it stands on its own, however, I think the story is pretty good. Serviceable at worst, I feel. This tale of star-crossed lovers isn't anything new, but how they work the gameplay around it, as well as with the other characters, I find was very well done. And a quick shout out to the cast of this game. This game is filled to the brim with well-known voice actors, with every scene that has dialogue being fully voice acted, and everyone I feel does a superb job bringing to life all these characters, especially Ian Sinclair playing Berkut. This man needs a video game Oscar equivalent just for this scene alone.
No, please, have mercy, sire! Your Excellency! Uncle! Nothing but lies. Lies! 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 Lies!
And this game's level of quality is fantastic. The graphics pushes the 3DS to a degree that I'm surprised is even capable of achieving. Character designs in-game also look really good, as well as the fantastic artwork depicting them all in conversations and stat screens. And save for a few derpy faces when you get up close, character animations are very fluent and all lend a level of uniqueness to each character not seen too often in any other Fire Emblem, at least on the 3DS. The one downside is that the cutscenes don't have nearly as good of polish to them as previous titles. Rather than being done in-house, they got Studio Kara to make them, which I won't say are bad at their job, obviously. I mean, I certainly can't say bad about this kind of stuff, since I can't even draw to save my life. But what looked like a beautiful stream of wonderfully drawn scenes done one after another in previous titles turned into a sort of computer-generated version of that same stuff that moves at a frame rate somewhere between an old vaudeville show and a sticky note flipbook. And if there's something you need to know about me right now, is that I don't pick out frame rate shifts that well. But regardless, moving on, this game's music is actually really good. Faithfully updated from the original, the special edition came with the game's soundtrack that played both the classic version and the updated version of the songs, and back then even they sounded pretty good, but even more so now with the updated instruments, my favorites being March to Deliverance and the Dauntless Blade. So that's everything surrounding this game to make it look and sound the way it does. But how about its gameplay? Well, that one's a little more complicated to explain, but let's go about it one thing at a time. So, being a remake based on a Fire Emblem set before the weapon triangle was introduced, now characters are basically set as either a melee, magic, or a bow user, with very few classes actually being able to double dip. Now, it's not a matter of having the right matchups, it's about literally bringing the unit with the most desirable stat for that specific fight you want it for. Other little things that changed include how now, instead of just blocking attacks, if you have high enough defense, characters will always take at least 1 point of damage. It makes dodging an important thing to consider for your character, as that's the only way they'll be able to get out of fights unscathed. Next is now every character can equip one item of your choice to use in battle. Items range between upgraded weapons, different assortment of accessories that provide a variety of benefits, or even food to heal mid-battle. Eating food also affects a morale meter, but I'll get into that in a second. Items can also have skills attached to them that you can unlock by using them a lot with one character. Skills vary from adding extra defenses or attacks with different benefits. That's a little bit how this game borrows from the newer ones, among other things, but note that in order to use most of these skills, it costs health to perform. So that's where a lot of this game's strategic thinking comes into play, with using skills as well as spells from mages costing you health based on what action you're trying to perform. Mages learn different spells through level ups like a traditional RPG, and most spells after fire take a fair bit of health to perform and could even alter certain stats upon using it. It's kind of a risk versus reward system with this, and in concept, it's not something that I wouldn't see Fire Emblem having as a game mechanic. The problem with it, at least for me, was that I never felt like I was in danger using the spells and most skills, with the exception of the ultimate skills, which seems to forecast my imminent death like every single time. There are some accessories that automatically heal characters a little every turn, so you could either stick that on your character or on a healer and use them to replenish your team's health. Even without those, there are plenty of tiles that also heal characters if they're on them. Speaking of tiles, let's talk about these maps. Being a remake of an NES game released back in 1992, back in the days of overly difficult level design to complement the shorter playtimes and lifespans of these games, there are some serious flaws with these maps. I wouldn't say that a difficult game is bad, you just gotta buck up and endure. But this game specifically has extremely cheap level design. Be prepared to rely on long distance units because too many of these maps have layouts that would wreck anyone who can't counterattack, having long stretches of spots where close range fighters would basically just be useless. This happens on way too many maps, culminating in one of the worst, most tedious levels I have ever played in any game ever, in the Siege of Nuibaba's Abode. When the game isn't being ball-bustingly frustrating in these parts, there's the odd level that is just about letting everyone run at you, heal, then move on. The entire game's difficulty goes on a nice roller coaster ride for all of it, mostly on a steep uphill climb for most of it though. Another thing that this game borrowed from new ones is supports, despite the trailers kind of lying about it.
Pillars of modern warfare, such as paired units and predictable archers, have no place in Valentia.
What's nice with the system in this game, though, is that characters don't need to be directly beside each other in order to benefit from their bonuses. The game also lets you know who is close by that gives the bonuses. And with the conversations that happen, since there's no S-rank conversations with the characters having canonical matchups in-game, it makes the dialogue between the units feel a little more detailed rather than just trying to set up potential romantic relationships. Now onto probably the best part of the game, dungeon crawling. Certain areas allow you to explore them in a sort of point-and-click style gameplay, talking to people and fighting items around the area. That's nice. But then in other places, you take full control of either Alm or Celica in a fully explorable 3D environment, running around and destroying crates and pots for rupees, coins and stale food, unveiling secret areas, and attacking or avoiding enemies patrolling the area. A fun change of pace. I knew this feature was something special when I was in the catacombs breaking some boxes for some money, when I happened to peek at the bottom screen and see an arrow displaying an enemy close by. Confused because I thought I'd cleared the room, I turned around only to get startled by an enemy jumping my butt. I learned then that you can't just swing around willy-nilly without repercussions, so you always have to be on your toes. Engaging in battles in these areas consists of you taking in 10 units to the dungeons to fight with. After making contact with an enemy, you start a mini encounter where all you have to do is just clear out the enemies. There can be some slight variations though, like if you hit the enemy before the battle, they actually have less health, or if there are others close by, they'll storm into the battle as well as reinforcements. And at the end of these dungeons is usually some sort of reward, which is always nice, as well as usually having a Mila shrine. When your units are at the appropriate level, you can visit the shrine and upgrade their class to an advanced one, no questions asked. Here is also the spot where you can offer rations to Mila to restore your team's morale, which is more of an issue in dungeons rather than on regular maps, but realistically not that much more important. Units lose morale after taking constant damage or miss attacks a lot, and if they lose too much, then their stats drop. Only a handful of times did it ever become a problem for me though, and even then, you can completely bail on the dungeon and restart from the beginning with everyone's health and morale back to full, and any items you collected so far immediately back in your inventory, all but negating the system. Finally, the other gameplay mechanic prevalent throughout the entirety of your journey is Mila's turn wheel. By using it in battle, you expend 1 point on it to reverse any move made up to that point and choose which spot to restart on. It's a nice thing to have for those that have the tendencies to restart Fire Emblem games after something goes horribly wrong, as it kind of cuts out the middleman and lets you go back to any given spot. You can only do it a certain amount of times per battle, but you can increase how many times by collecting cogs for it scattered all throughout the game. A minor nitpick that I have with it though is that I thought it would reset any encounter made after using it. Say, for example, I missed a crucial 95% hit chance on an attack and am bound to lose a unit shortly thereafter. By using the turn wheel and retrying those types of bouts, I found that I still kept missing over and over until I learned that it doesn't reset it, but just lets you try to do something different, which is my advice I can give here. Want to try for a different outcome? Send a unit to a different spot to attack than you originally tried and do it again. So you push back and defeat Rigel, discovering some hidden truths about Alm and Celica, as well as their new companions, and put a stop to the nefarious schemes of the Doom of Faithful. Now what? Well, there's a plotline concerning Arcanea, the mainland that was set for New Mystery of the Emblem, and while that's all well and good, there is one huge problem with this whole setup. See, the problem stems from this game's Season Pass DLC that almost seems annoyingly obligated to be in every game ever made from now on. The problem with this game's version of it though is that it costs the exact same as the base game. Right off the bat, that is absolutely ridiculous, especially for a handheld title. Not nearly as bad in theory as, say, some of EA's DLC practices, but there was one glaring problem with it. See, with how I've played by endgame, I felt like I had my units in a decent place. Everyone was an advanced unit, and I had strong items on them, and while the final dungeon was tough, it was certainly manageable. However, these new maps contain some exceedingly powerful opponents, to the point that they dwarf over my units. I don't know what I did wrong. I did all the maps that were available and recruited all the allies I could. I guess I could grind for a bit. So I rushed to Duma's Tower, the final area of the main game, to go and train. I get into a battle only to find that my units are gaining pitiful amounts of experience. Well, that's really annoying. How am I ever to get the experience or power that I need to stand a chance? Oh. That is such a low blow intelligent systems pull on us. And I don't even know if it's intentional, accidental, or if I'm doing something wrong that could earn me experience elsewhere. But considering one of the DLC maps is specifically shown to earn you more experience than usual, I can only feel like it is definitely intentional. I'm aware that Awakening and Fates had similar DLC maps, but I never even consider those maps when playing through these games. Echoes absolutely does, since I have no desire to try and get through the maps with the team I have, or try and grind forever to do so. Now, some might point out that there's free DLC items that Echoes gives out. Yeah, and I used them through my main game where I saw fit to use them, and I'm still having a rough go at it. This whole setup left me with a sour outlook on the game upon setting it down. I had other games to go play, and I wasn't about to shell out extra cash or waste so many hours on trying to complete these final 4 maps. Despite that, if I was to look purely at the main game, I wouldn't say I disliked it. It was just very polarizing. What one thing this game did to really wow me, there was another that left me scratching my head in confusion. And please, if anyone out there has some tips or ideas for me to help me finish the post-game without dishing out needless money, please let me know in the comments below. But anywho, that's it for this one. If you like what you saw, maybe check out my other Fire Emblem reviews, or maybe take a look at my Pokemon reviews. And next time we come back to Fire Emblem, we jump genres and consoles to the Nintendo Switch with Fire Emblem Warriors. Until then, I will see you all later.